Good morning, good morning, good morning, or wherever you are. Good afternoon, maybe good evening, depending on what corner of the earth that you are in. It's a beautiful Saturday morning at 11 a.m. here in Charlotte, North Carolina. I'm coming to you live with as you can see, those of you who've been here before, I got a fun, fresh cut. I have a new do. It was time to go all in, hard into the paint with the haircut. So we're having fun with it. I hope you're doing fantastic. Thank you for joining us on a Saturday. And if you're watching the replay, I know that the 11 o'clock hour on Saturdays is not the best for everybody. I suppose there's no exact time on Saturday that works for the majority. But we're going to do these every day. And so you might be watching on the replay. And if you are watching on the replay, thank you for joining us. If you're here live, drop into the chat and let us know where you are, where you're watching from. It's always nice for me and for my team to see where everybody is coming in from, and it's always nice from a community perspective for you to be able to see who else is here. We've got. I see Dave is out in Phoenix, checking in most times. Good to see you here today, Dave. We got Dan Siegfried. We got Eric in Kansas City, but from Marion, Ohio. Okay, one of my best friends is from Marion. So, yesterday we were on flexibility, and today we are on the simple skill of saying no. And I put, along with saying no, I also put ignoring. Because here's ultimately what this skill is about. What's up, Charlie? I see you in Delaware. Here's what the skill is. The end goal of this skill, right? The tail end of this skill, the consequence, the second order, third order impact of this skill is making sure that we have the right filters set in place to block out the noise, right? To this directing your attention, choosing your focus and your attention, that's one thing. This is about, in conjunction with that, right? In parallel with that, this is about the end goal of ensuring that we keep out as much low value noise as we can, and that when it does get through, that we have the well-built strength to say no to tempting things. Here's what this skill is. The simple skill of saying no and ignoring is blocking out low value noise that does not do three things. Bring value, create joy, or serve your purpose. Those are the three things. This is the simple skill of blocking out low value noise that doesn't bring value, create joy, or serve your purpose. When we think about the things we want to give our attention to, and when we think about the things that we can make room for to come into our lives, or allow avenues for them to come in, or maybe explore a path of things that are worth giving attention to, making those decisions, we want to make sure that whatever we're giving and choosing to give attention to does those three things, right? We want it to bring value to us. We want it to create joy for us. Because not everything that creates joy is necessarily a traditionally value-giving experience. So, movies are fun. The Avengers came across. I think my son was wearing an Avengers watch, and I don't know that in your life or my life that the Avengers is a big value-creating place to spend time, but it does create joy, right? It does bring joy into our lives if you're into those things, and if you're not, well, then it doesn't bring joy. And so there's an element of entertainment that brings joy, but there's also an element of it that could take value away or be a distraction, which would actually lead to more pain or anxiety, etc. And these are the things that we want to pay attention to. And then the last piece is obviously blocking out low value noise that does not serve your purpose. And that's really one of the big things. So, I've noticed for myself, and this might be a little tactical compared to the previous things that we've done, but I've noticed for myself that the majority of the significant breakthroughs in my life have come or been triggered by the removal of things, not by the addition of things. And that speaks to me. when I've made big breakthroughs, it's not, it didn't start, it didn't begin. It wasn't, like I said, it wasn't triggered by me bringing more and more and more stuff into my life or a particular area where I was trying to get the breakthrough. It began with and was instigated by, and the actual breakthrough itself happened by the removal of things, the pushing out of the noise, and the clarity that that provided, the revelation when you brushed away all of the excess. What was left was the value, the joy, the truth, the purpose, the focus, the gold. That's what's left when you brush away all of the noisy, shallow, false, useless glitter excess. And you're just left with this, what's the right word? You're left with the truth, right? You're left with value. You're left with something that's been chiseled and you can go pour yourself into. And so we talk a lot about sort of getting to that spot, but here's the larger point. We've talked a bunch on these videos about what's the core and what's the purpose. This is a different skill. This is about the skill of getting rid of all of this stuff. And what I believe is important, right? What I believe is important to know about this is two things. First, these two skills are saying no and ignoring, right? I think there's a tier. As much as you can, ignore the noise and the excess, etc., no matter how popular it is, right? As much as you possibly can, ignore it. What does ignoring mean? It means putting it out of your attention, out of your cognition, out of your mind, out of your vision. Get it away and set up whatever you need to do to set up in your life to ensure that you don't have to make the decisions to say no to things that are tempting or say no to things that are flashing in front of your face and trying to say, pay attention to me. Ignoring is preferable as much as possible. But the second part is, given the nature of our world, no matter how much you set up filters and no matter how much you try to ignore, eventually things are going to come across your attention. They're going to come across your perception. They are going to find an intriguing value proposition that you start to look at and explore. They're going to tempt you, to use the simplest possible word. And you'll have to make a decision. You'll have to say yes or no. And that is a skill. You can choose what's important all day long. You can choose what's valuable. You can choose your beliefs. You can practice a bunch of skills. But there is nothing that replaces the capacity to say yes or say no. And that's the skill you've got to build. So I would love it if I could just ignore everything that didn't serve my life, everything that didn't benefit me, if I could just straight up ignore it. And I'm good at that. But no matter how good I get, there's stuff that is tempting to me. There's stuff that calls me. There's stuff that says, oh, what about this? Oh, what about that? Oh, you could do this instead. And I've got to say no to the low value noise that tempts me on that. And that's the skill that I've actually got to build. And it's the skill that we're going to talk about here today. So, when I talk about, the breakthroughs in my life have come from the stuff that I've said no to. What I think is important about this, and again, passing these things on to you so that you know where I'm coming from to pass value on to you, is that when you remove low value things from your life, you create space for high value things. That's pretty straightforward. When you say no to and ignore stuff that, again, let's look at these, doesn't bring value, doesn't create joy, and doesn't serve your purpose, you create space and opportunity for things that bring value, create joy, and do serve your purpose. So part of this is simply asset allocation, there's a certain amount that you can process. Obviously, you've got attention, you've got time, you've got energy. We've talked about this before. and you can only deploy so much of those every day. Time is fixed, attention is also fixed, and energy, while not being fixed, energy has limits and it can't be spent on everything. So you can choose what's valuable, but that also means you're going to have to identify and be pretty stringent on what is not valuable. All right. So that's the first important piece. The second piece is that when you are free, when you're able to block out things that other people try to say are priorities, no matter how popular they are, you create more available resources to focus on the things that are your priorities. And I see a lot of people right now who are making a priority things that are not purposeful priorities, and they're caught. They're pulled and distracted into stuff that it's popular. So I'll give you some examples of what I'm talking about, but here's where we're going to jump in. Self-awareness, self-control, self-confidence. Know yourself, control yourself, believe in yourself. Know yourself. Here's the first part around know yourself, right? And by the way, if you have any questions, go ahead and drop them in on the chat, and we'll get to those questions. I'm looking to see who else is here. We've got Florence, Alabama, Westerville, Tacoma, Washington, out on the West Coast. I'm sure this time works a little better for you guys. Columbus, Westerville again, Lake Orion, Michigan. We got the Villages in Florida, North Royalton in Ohio. Beatrice from France. Hello, good to see you. There's a question that jumped in right now from Josh. Can this be applied to the removal of toxic relationships in order to find clarity? Josh, this is everything. Okay? This is everything. I actually don't draw a line of distinction on what kind of stuff qualifies for this. This is all of it. I mean, look, the truth of all of this is that sometimes, let's go halfway between what you're talking about and maybe something more like a TV show, right? Monday Night Football or Real Housewives. Halfway between that is, rather than removing a toxic relationship, which would be a drastic, but sometimes, frankly, even a lot of times necessary, especially when looking at it over the course of your life. Or, not watching a TV show anymore because it doesn't bring you joy and serve your purpose and add value. Halfway between that would be this: a relationship that is necessary, good, or maybe a family part of the relationship, but something they do that is particularly toxic that they're not going to stop doing and you don't have control over. You'll have to ignore, or you will have to say no to engaging with parts of a relationship and how people interact in it. That's part of how it goes. Look, it's not lost on me, with a heavy dose of humility, that depending on who you are, that if you spent a lot of time around me, that there are parts of my style and behavior pattern and way of approaching things that you might have to ignore in order to have a good, functioning, healthy relationship with me, because I do things in a way that you're different or you don't like. There's, of course, that would be a reasonable thing to assume. So, Josh, the answer is yes. And I think one of the things people struggle to do and are hesitant to do is cut anything out of their life. And obviously relationships would be really near the top. And it's almost like we just keep adding and adding and adding. And I think it's part of the excess of this era, and other eras in history have had this. But we are in this era of more. And obviously we are consuming. And we've got major FOMO. We're afraid of hurting somebody else's feelings by cutting them out of our life and what they would think about us. And so instead, we carry the burden and the anxiety and the resentment on their behalf, which hurts our feelings and destroys our lives, rather than cutting them out to make sure we're okay and their emotions are hurt. And it's backwards, right? This has got to bring value to you, create joy for you, serve your purpose. Because if you're not in a great place, what value is that relationship anyway? I mean, again, when you break it down rationally, those decisions don't make sense. And that's because we make decisions largely based on emotions. And emotions make us feel sometimes like we're crazy, but they emotionally make sense. And we want to bring the combination of rational and emotional. So I'm going to go back. Self-awareness. Here's just a couple practical things for you on saying no and ignoring. Everything is marketing, all right? And I think in the stream of sort of day-to-day life and how we're used to Instagram and Twitter and all of this different stuff everywhere, magazines, we consume it like these things are designed to educate us, like these things are designed to help us, like these things are designed with our benefit in mind. And it's really helpful to remember that 99% of the things that you see on TV, social media, magazines, and the internet don't have any concern for you. They are not designed with your best interest. They are not designed to add and bring value to you. 99% of things don't care who you are or what you want beyond its capacity to serve what their marketing mission is, and that is largely to either make money, make you angry, get your attention, whatever it is. The point is this. The point is, human beings are designed biologically to, watch and observe and do all these different things. Human beings were not designed biologically to know what was marketing and what was not, and then be really good with setting up filters so they don't get caught in thinking something was valuable when it wasn't. So you've got to exert a significant amount of self-awareness here. Everything is marketing. Everything you see is marketing. 24/7, 365, and none of it cares about you. It just doesn't. Once you've got that understanding, once you've got that mindset, now you know that the person who's got to decide about whether or not this is worth your time is the one person who cares about you, knows what value you need, knows what brings you joy, knows what your purpose is, and that is you. Everything is going to try to tell you it's important, it's for you, you need this, you want this, this makes you happy, this makes you good, this will make you fulfilled, this will fill that hole that you've got inside of you. Everything is selling to you. You have to decide. And here's what you can confidently know. 99% of the stuff is not worth it for you. And your 1% will be different than my 1%. But 99% of it, you just need to ignore it. You need to brush it aside. You need to set up a filter. You need to get it out of your stream. For me, it's the number one reason that I don't watch television or the news. I don't watch the news at all. I don't watch ESPN ever. Maybe outside of a live football game, college football game, because it's not for me. Right? It's entertainment. It's trying to capture my attention. It's trying to insist that you need to see these highlights. I don't. You have to see this play. I don't. This play will change your life when you see it. It won't. I've seen a lot of sports. I've played a lot of sports. Watching another highlight reel is not important to my life. It's not. Watching a particular game is not important to my life. There's a handful that I really want to watch, but if it's not a team I've got an emotional investment in or a client that I'm working with, I have no need for it. Especially when I'm comparing it to the other things that bring me joy and add value and serve my purpose. Watching a game, consuming what somebody thinks about what's going on in politics, watching a news report on what a journalist thinks about somebody else who's actually out in a business trying to make things happen, and somebody who decided to go write an article about the other person taking all of the risk. No, that doesn't serve anything. And again, these are my filters, not necessarily having to be yours. This is the point of setting up what those things are for you. And so while everything wants to make you feel like it's important, you've got to decide what is important. And then 99% of it isn't. That's the self-awareness element. Here's what the self-control element is, right? The self-control element is this. Once you've decided what's important to you, and then you're understanding that 99% of the stuff that you're going to come across in a given day, and I am not exaggerating about this, by the way. I don't know how many things come across our filters, how many things we see on Twitter and Instagram and email and conversations and talks and TV and the road. You start looking at it like you're going to experience way more than 100 or 200 data points and things calling for your attention. I mean, you're going to experience probably thousands. So when I say 99% of it doesn't matter, I'm being literal. Like I'm being literal. It's not a figurative. Literally 99%. And, if we're being conservative, there's probably 30 or 40% of that 99% that you're touching and engaging with. And it's like, oh, you're like, oh, yeah, no, I need to really pull that in. And that's something worth considering. And it's blocking out and crowding your ability to go all in on your priorities and your needs and your value. It's blocking it out. The other part of that is this, and this is where the self-control element comes in. The fear of blocking out 99% of the stuff is that part of our brain that says, ooh, what did I miss? That's the biggest fear. Oh, what did I miss? What if there was something super, super valuable there? And I think that fear is misplaced. I think that fear is there because we don't have the confidence yet. And we haven't been decisive yet about going all in on what we already know is important. And so we're hopeful that maybe there's some new information I would see that would really change things for me. As opposed to the confident decision, and this is where I believe self-control with this comes in. Self-control comes in, is set your priorities, know what's important, and then be decisive about what you pay attention to and what you ignore and what you say no to. Go all in. Be decisive. Do not worry about what you're not seeing. Do not worry about what you didn't see on the news, what you didn't watch in the game, what you didn't see in the highlights, the books you didn't read, the conversations you didn't have, the opinions you didn't hear. Put all of your attention on what you need to give it to. And when you be decisive, don't hesitate. Don't hesitate to cut things out of your life. It's like if you've ever cleaned out your closet. If you've cleaned out your closet, you 100% have had this experience. You're cleaning out your closet, you're getting rid of a bunch of old clothes, and then you come across something, and you're like, look at this, and you're like, ooh, I haven't worn this in 3 years, but I like it, and I might wear it again. And then you hesitate, and you wait because you're like, oh, I might wear it, but it's the first time you've thought of that piece of clothing in 3 years, and now you're maybe going to keep it because you think you might wear it again, even though you haven't worn it or missed it or thought about it even once in the last 3 years. That's what I'm talking about. It didn't matter. Get rid of it. Because until you had seen it, you never even thought about its importance in your life. It didn't affect you at all. And so you can take that feeling, and then we kind of laugh at ourselves when that happens, right? And if you've never cleaned out your closet and had that experience, believe me, go clean out your closet and you will have it today, I promise. So set your priorities, focus your attention, ignore as much as you possibly can and have to and need to. No matter how many times you need to say no, you say no as many times as you need to say no so that you are dialing everything in on your priorities. And then you be decisive, you don't hesitate, you act. You watch what happens in your life, you see how things go, you make some adjustments, and you get decisive again, you don't hesitate, you go all back in again. And what I do and how I like to do this is and this is I've actually had a number of people do this after some conversations. And that is this. I think a great way to do this is this. Strip your life down. And I don't know, start with something like social media or TV. I mean, two simple kind of, look, if you lost social media and you lost TV, is your life going to, become miserable? I would say no, right? It's not. So what I do is this, and you can do some different scales of this. Strip them down to zero, both of them. Okay, strip them down to zero. A few years back, I unfollowed everybody on all of my social media accounts. I literally took everyone out. I ignored and said no to everybody. Then what I did was and I just started going back and going through my day-to-day. Then I just started only adding back in the people that I found I missed from a value, joy, or purpose perspective. And I only added people back in that were in alignment with those three things for me if I encountered them or came back across them again. But I ignored and said no to almost everybody, and I'm still at that spot. And I probably need to do it again. And you can do this with TV. Stop everything. Cancel all of it. Literally. I mean, and you think about this, and it's like people are like, well, that sounds drastic. It's your life. It's your life. Of course, yes, of course, it's worth it. But the point would be, get rid of everything. Get rid of Netflix, Disney, Hulu. Get rid of your I don't know if you can get rid of Prime and then still keep the shipping. Right? Cancel your cable bill, and go 90 or 120 days with none of it. Go use that time on stuff that brings you joy, adds value, and serves your purpose, and then add back in as you go the stuff that you find fits those three things for you. Start by the removal and then only slowly add things back in as you go. It's a super, super, super useful way. Now, you don't have to necessarily cancel everything, right? You could stop watching all of the TV shows that you watch and go a period without watching anything and then only turn back on the stuff that you thought really added value. The hard part about that is it's kind of a low threshold because you can just turn the TV on anytime. So I like the notion of canceling, unfollowing, getting rid of apps, getting rid of stuff. I like the throwing out, right? Like it'd be like your furniture. It's like if you took all your furniture out of your house and you put it all on the sidewalk and you went back into your house and then you kind of lived for a while. You'd only come back, you'd only first start bringing back in the really high value stuff that you needed and used and was super important to the day-to-day functioning inside your house. And this is a lot like that. Throw it all out, get it out, then only add back in the stuff as value and purpose and joy is actually needed. And being decisive on that is huge. And then the last piece is a little bit of what we've talked about. You can have confidence. You can have confidence that 99% of the stuff that is going to get marketed to you isn't worth your time, attention, or energy. 99% of the stuff. And I want you to be able to have that confidence to say no and ignore without fear of maybe everybody else is learning stuff that I'm not learning. And I guess there's a couple parts about this that are interesting to me of, like for example, I almost never read best-selling books. I mean, I couldn't tell you the last best-selling book that I've read. I'm looking at my shelf. I don't even know. Not any recent ones for sure. I don't know, maybe Ray Dalio's Principles is up there, but I knew who Ray was and I knew about his principles beforehand. And so Ray and I have a similar way of thinking. This is not to suggest I'm in any way like Ray Dalio at all, but there's alignment with what I know of him and how I like to think. And so I bought Principles. That's probably the closest, and that had a pre-existing relationship. The point is, I don't care what everybody else is reading. I don't care what book is popular. I don't care what the bestseller list says. I don't care what's popular in the schools or in the MBA program or among coaches. It doesn't matter. Because one, it doesn't matter what's popular. It matters what's executed. Number two, the more popular the book is, the less it's actually understood and applied. Right? And then number three is popularity and how many people have read it means nothing to its direct value to me and the skill it can actually bring into my life that adds value. None of those things are related. So when I'm hearing that, oh, everybody else has read this and everybody else knows about this, I don't care. It doesn't matter because I have to set the decisions about what's important to me. Popularity is not a message. So of the 99% of that stuff, there's probably 75% or so that you can just stop looking at. You can literally do this ignoring piece that I'm talking about. And then there's probably another 24% given the numbers. There's another 24% that you're just gonna have to learn and practice and train yourself on how to say no to because it's gonna come across your plate. And there's little things like this, right? Here's what I do. I think about this whenever I'm eating particularly well. Like if I'm on a very specific level of discipline in the food that I'm eating, what I've noticed is how effective TV commercials are at making me want their meals, right? When I couldn't tell you the last time I've been to Applebee's, but Applebee's just came to my mind. When I'm eating really well, Applebee's commercials look delicious. Their endless basket of fries, the seared burgers, the gourmet burgers with the quesadilla burger, and it's great. I couldn't tell you the last time I've ever been to an Applebee's. And if I'm eating really well, Applebee's marketing on TV makes the food look delicious. Hardee's out here in Charlotte. I grew up with Carl's Jr. in the West Coast. Hardee's out here. Hardee's puts their burger. I haven't eaten Hardee's. I can't stand Hardee's. But I'll tell you what, their commercials look fantastic when I'm eating really well. So the point is, the marketing, it knows the buttons to push in you a huge percentage of the time. Knowing how to say no and knowing when you're in that spot is huge. And again, we're in this 99% zone. We can ignore a massive portion of it. We got to say no to the other portion of it. And if we can't do that, what's going to happen is this. You're going to think that you're making decisions. You're going to think you're in control. You're going to think that it was you that wanted it, when in reality, it wasn't you. You were convinced. You were persuaded. You were tricked. You were duped. You were fooled. You were marketed to an impulse that you had no control over, or you didn't have confidence in whatever your priorities were. And the 99% noise got you because you couldn't ignore it or say no. And there's a whole lot of people out there. I'm not judging these people. They're good people. But there's a whole lot of people out there. And their entire job is to find out where that is in you and push that button. That's their job. So if you don't take control of this, you're going to give control to somebody else who does not have your best interest in mind. They've got their bottom line. They've got their dollars. They've got their brand. They've got their attention in mind. And they're not trying to give it to you. They're trying to earn it. And that's just how it goes. It's not sinister, but it is marketing, and that's how it works. The last comment for me on this 99% piece is get rid of the FOMO. I think this is part of it's why I go so hard on giving your attention to stuff that matters, using your time on things that are yours and not other people's, right? Use your time for your priorities and spend your energy, is because a lot of people struggle with this FOMO side of they'd like to say no and ignore, but they're so worried that if they did that, they would miss out on huge things. Like I literally still hear people say, when I say don't watch the news, I still hear say, oh, I need to stay updated on what's actually going on. As if somehow in this life that they're living, if they didn't watch the news, again, whatever they're watching, if they didn't watch the news, that somehow life would pass them by and things would happen in the world and they would have no idea what was actually going on. Like as if that's even possible. And so they're convinced of this FOMO of missing out on really important information when they've got information at any point in time, and they could get the exact same info in a much more informative fashion with much less, undue influence and storytelling that the news media puts in on every side. And they could get the core information they wanted in 1/100th of the time at a level of honesty much higher than where they're currently consuming it. But the FOMO gets them. So the earlier you do this, the more decisive you are with this, the less you hesitate, and the more drastic you go, the greater chance that you're going to build a better skill of ignoring and saying no. And it's about the things that you decide to make that on and not about the things that I decide. It's not about the comparison. It's about what matters to you. So anyway, this is the skill. This is what it is. I think this is pound for pound. If I was starting somewhere inside of in this skill set, this is what I would start on. For me, it's where I start every time. Before I jump into these skills, I smash this button. Like before I jump into empathy, before I jump in observation, energy, time, focus. Tomorrow on Sunday, we're going to be on risk management. Before I do any of these other skills, the button I smash in my life is ignoring the noise. Because that's what doesn't create more time, but that's what frees my resources to go all in on what matters to me. So pound for pound, I believe this to be the best starting point for anyone who wants to take their life seriously and make it as valuable as possible, because the stuff in this life will steal your time. And when it steals your time, it steals your mind as well. So this is where I would start. Okay, questions. Went a little long on that one, but it was worth it. So questions. Let's jump into some Q&A. Um, by the way, if you want to know go ahead and Google how many hours a week does the average American watch television. And I think it's American. You know, I don't know if the stats transfer globally, but Google it. How many hours a week does the average person watch TV? And don't go to a blog where somebody guesses and don't read. Go to the actual data. A lot of it will be in the Nielsen ratings or some others. Go to the actual data and watch what the hour is. It is a wild amount of time, and people are not self-aware of it. Okay, questions. Lake Orion football makes a lot of sense, BK. Cleaning out the closet storage rooms are satisfying, so doing the same thing in your life's closet and storage room only makes sense. Yeah, you know, when you clean out the clutter and the excess and the stuff that it's like, you know, there's always those handful of things that you just realize, oh, I should keep this around just in case. And then there's never just in case. And then there's stuff that you kept around because you thought it looked nicer, you thought you would like to wear it, and then you just never did. And that happens in life as well. So there's a lot of ways to do this. Dan, how do you know a particular book doesn't add value? Are there people in my circles whose suggestions nudge me to read a book, or is it a personal exposure that leads me to digging deeper? Yeah, Dan, I actually just have a hard and fast rule. I don't read new books, period. I only read old books. And the only way I will read a new book is in two scenarios. One, I have a pre-existing relationship with whoever the author is, and who that author is, how that author thinks has been proven out to me and borne out to add direct value to my life against the standards I've chosen. So Ray Dalio would qualify for this. I say pre-existing relationship. I don't mean personal. I mean, I know who the person is, how they operate. I know enough about them to say that person is somebody who speaks and adds value up to the standards I believe in and squares against me. So, for example, one of those values in my life is the timeless nature of these things. I am pretty heavily anti-modernity, and so I'll give you a good example, right? And I'm sure a good person, but a book, Grit, by Angela Duckworth out of Penn, I believe. I don't know Angela at all. Haven't read her book, but the book Grit. But a lot of people have, and I bet a bunch of people here have. And I'm sure it's a good book, right? But the book teaches that people who work harder for longer on things, stick with it and are persistent and don't get knocked down by setbacks are more productive and perform at higher levels than people who don't. And she has now scientifically proven that through her laboratory experiments. We didn't need that. That's been proven for thousands of years by people with a lot more skin in the game than a professor. So that book is taught better by better people, for me, in older books. Don't need to read a book from a college laboratory testing to tell me that people who work harder for longer on things and don't get pushed down by setbacks perform. One, I already knew that. Two, there's a lot better lessons from people who are actually on the front lines of things. So that's a good example, right? Not judging any of that stuff. It's just I'm not going to read that book. That's not going to happen with me. The second piece would be if it's a technical book, right? So something that is, I've got books on writing, or say like a book on influence, where there's a lot of old books on influence that are super valuable, but it's also books that maybe have a more technical capacity, copywriting, for example, different things like that. So a technical book that's new, or an author I have a pre-existing relationship with, again, personally, or just because I know who they are and how they operate. Those are the two ways that I would read a new book. Otherwise, I would put it this way. It's an ignore for me. It's not a say no, it's an ignore. I don't do it. It's just, I don't read books like that. That's just my rule. And that's not right, that's just me. So it's not something I'm necessarily telling everybody else it would be the best thing for them, because I like to read the old books that are a slog to read sometimes. All right, one more question. By the way, Shane Breslin hit it. The average American watches about 36 hours of TV every week. If we're going to include Netflix and all those other things into that, you can do the math on 36 hours a week, and how many days a year that is, it's about 72. And how many 72 days is about 2.5 months. The average person in America spends about 2.5 months a year watching TV when you add it all up. 24-hour days, 72 of them. So 99% of that could get cut out. 99%. And not only would your life not lose value, it would exponentially gain massive value. If the debate is between whether or not you watch a Monday Night Football game or Real Housewives or whatever other show, and what else you could add to your life, Monday Night Football and Real Housewives lose 10 out of 10. Now, if Monday Night Football is the only thing that you watch, okay, it's a different environment, but it's typically not how it works. All right, Charlie, last question of the day, because we're at our time here. Do I cut stuff out of my life that may not bring me value, but is valuable to or is brought to you by someone else that I really care about? Where do I draw the line? I draw the line where I take things out of my life that just don't bring me value. Like, it just doesn't bring me value. Now, if somebody wants to do something nice for me, depending on what it is, like, it's not like, I don't know, if somebody, like for example, here's a good example. If somebody were to bring me a book and say, boy, I really, really like this book. This book was great. I really hope you read it. I'm not going to read that book. I'll accept it and say thank you and I appreciate it because there's no reason for me to reject it. That doesn't do any value. But if they give it to me, I'm not going to read it. And so I would draw it there. And if later they come up and said, hey, tell me what you thought of the book, I would just say I haven't read it. I appreciate it. Maybe I would flip through and peruse some things here and there. But I'm probably not going to read it. But yeah, we can talk about it. So it'd be that. I think this is one of those where, Charlie, you've got to make a decision about whether saying yes is out of obligation and doing something that, again, I just go those three things: bring value, create joy, serve your purpose. If saying yes to somebody else who brought something into your life or not ignoring it starts to, in a minor way, maybe detract a little bit, like maybe you can do it a couple times, but if it's a serious amount or a significant amount of value taken away, joy dropped, or way off your purpose, I think you probably already know the answer to that one, Charlie. And everybody has to make their own decisions, and there's no amount of decisions that I would make about what's important to me to say no and ignore that are going to align completely with anyone else in this world, including my wife. It's not going to happen. So my wife has to say yes and no to what she needs to say yes and no to, and I've got to do the same. And hopefully we align on a lot of stuff, but we will not align on everything, and that's okay. I'll be responsible for my emotional well-being. She'll be responsible for hers. We will continue to share and invest into each other. Okay. Shane. Shane, just last comment here. RBTV, I think of it like Ramit Sethi thinks about spending money. The TV I love, go all in. The TV I don't, remove it entirely. Watch an hour of TV in the last 7 days. The Last Dance on Netflix. I love Ramit. Spent some time with Ramit a few years ago, and he's fantastic. I love the way Ramit thinks and structures, and I absolutely believe in that money principle from him, and I also absolutely believe in the time principle. I love Ray Donovan. I love Billions. I love Homeland. Just watched the series finale. I've got a handful of adult television shows that I watch, and that's it. Right? And so when I watch them, I go all in because I really enjoy them. They're a really minor portion of my life. They bring me joy. They don't cost me. But if I were to add 3, 4, 5 other shows, if I were to add another 5, 6, 7, 8 hours of TV watching to my week, immediately those things would start to go down. So yeah, the stuff that we love, go all in. The stuff that really makes a difference, go all in. This is about being specific about what those are, making decisive choices, not hesitating and going all in. And then later on, we can add the stuff back in that we think really adds value if it does. So I appreciate it. Thank you, everybody. And if you're watching on the replay, join us live one of these days and come in. So Tomorrow, I don't know what time I'm gonna go tomorrow because I think last week we did a Sunday in the morning, and I think it was not the best time. So I'd like to go tomorrow afternoon, but I haven't made a decision yet on that. Here's what we're gonna do tomorrow. By the way, if you've got times that you would prefer, go ahead and tag me on Twitter and let me know what times you would prefer. That's the best place. Let's do this on Twitter. At @TBrianKite is my Twitter handle. Let me know what time on Sunday, tomorrow, would be good for you. I'm on the East Coast, so Eastern time would be preferable in terms of how you communicated it. And then let's see what makes the most sense. I'm thinking afternoon, but not evening. Maybe sometime post-lunch, pre-dinner, sort of in that window. I'm not going to disrupt your nap, but I know also the morning time isn't the best for everybody. Tomorrow, we are going through risk management. How do you build the skill to see, understand, and manage risk in our lives? That's what we're going after. So I appreciate y'all. See you tomorrow.